Hi. Okay. I decided I wanted to like ramble on about Promethea a little bit more. Um, One thing that's going on is, well, here, the way that Sophie becomes Promethea is that she has to write a poem, and when she writes the poem, then she's able to transform into Promethea. Later on, her best friend Stacy or whatever becomes the new Promethea while she's gone on a journey and so on and so forth. In a way that that person becomes Promethea, she has to draw like a sketch, and I think that goes back to the whole thing of the power of creativity and the whole idea of belief and ideas and so on and so forth. Um, at one point, or I should say, not at one point, in the ongoing thing, she meets the previous Prometheus, and each one of them kind of has to tell her, you know, how to do her job and things she needs to know. I should say, I must teach you the way of the sword, I must teach you the way of the cup, I must teach you the way of the coin. And the sword represents reason, and this represents compassion, and this represents the way of the flesh, and so on and so forth. And also the previous Prometheus seemed to kind of represent different ideas and different personalities, different aspects of, in a way, different aspects of femininity, but in the other way, things that are definitely not limited to the female idea. You've got the one character who is the real warrior. You have somebody else who is the healer. Somebody else who represents um, the idea of, I don't want to say hedonism, but living life to the fullest. Somebody else who represents courage and strong will, and things like that. Another thing with the story is there's lots. I don't think I mentioned in the previous clip, but there's lots of humor going on. There's lots of satire. There's a whole thing I think I mentioned with the city. It's kind of a futuristic city. There's all kinds of things happening at once. There's weird creatures walking around. Big billboards, crazy neon signs. There's a running gag where the mayor has like multiple personalities, that are always arguing with each other, and whenever something goes wrong, he blames it on one of his other personalities. Um, Another thing, though, I don't think I talked enough about it, is if you care at all about art in any way, shape, or form, you should pick this up. Um, it is very, I mean, for a design point, it's really interesting. I think I mentioned that each and every cover is a completely different logo, completely different design, and they're very obvious. Well, I shouldn't say they're very obvious. Some of them very obvious homages to certain things in pop culture. Other things are a little bit more obscure. The art is by, like I said before, J.H. Williams III, and you just need to check it out. And you really look at the way that he and Alan Moore really push the idea of what you can do with comic book storytelling. That is, as far as the way the art and the visuals and the words connect to tell the story and to convey certain ideas. I know at one point there's one thing where people are walking along a giant Mobius strip, that flips around and goes around. You hold it back, yeah, it's a Mobius strip, and then but it also looks like the symbol for infinity, and they're talking about how everything's connected and things go in cycles and so on and so forth. I mean, there's stuff like that. And most every issue, there's things where they play around with collages. There's things where there's one comic where it's kind of turned on the side, where it's that whole kind of, I know it's an overused phrase, but the whole widescreen comics and things like that. So it's really rich there. That's the word I want to use. It's a really rich comic book. I think, excuse me, I think I mentioned before that after a while it got kind of loaded and heavy with the whole lectures on the 32 levels of reality and the tarot and all this sort of thing like that. But I would beg you, even if you're a spiritual person, if you're a religious person, I mean, I'm not giving anything away. I mean, everybody knows that Alan Moore is kind of a loon. He's into the occult and things like that. But don't let that scare you off from this comic. I mean, if you're secure in your faith and things like that, I don't think it's going to like lead you astray or anything like that. And just give it a shot. I mean, there's another thing of having a challenging comic book that's challenging in a more sophisticated way than some other things you have out there. And and I don't want to say this like look at me, I'm Joe comic book snob, because I'm not. The same day that I went out here and picked up a missing issue of Promethea, I went out there and got Deathlock #1 from the '90s. So so screw me, you know what I mean? But, if you're looking for something different though, definitely check this out. If you're interested in art, if you're interested in design, if you're interested in, visual storytelling at all, I mean, I would give this comic book. If you've got friends who talk about, hey, I want to be into comics, but I really don't care about, Batman or Superman or whatever. And if they're the least bit educated, throw this comic book at them. Lots of humor going on. There's drama. Like I said, just check it out. Okay. Once again, thanks a lot for listening to me. Tell me if I'm off the beaten path. Tell me you don't want to read any comics about the snake and the star and the symbol of the moon, or hey, maybe I should do more Batman stuff. All right. Thanks a lot. You have a good one.